So how many people this morning, before they came to Agape, looked in the mirror? Well, a few people didn't raise their hands. That scared me. Either that or they're really good at doing whatever it is they do without a mirror. So when you looked in the mirror, you saw a direct reflection of who you were, didn't you not? How many people have been to a carnival or Six Flags and gone into one of the houses that had all these different types of mirrors, and depending on the mirror that you were there in front of, your face could get really long, it could get wide, it could get scrunched, it could be like this, It changes everything, doesn't it? So look at it from this standpoint. Our life is basically a reflection of our mental atmosphere. And that's what I want to explore today. I want to explore today this idea that our life is a perfect reflection back to us. And what happens here is that wherever we're looking at things, our perspective, the perspective from which we look at something, is how we're going to see that. There's nothing more clear about that than in the elections happening today. There are people who have a belief that Washington or our government is seriously broken. Therefore, they see Donald Trump as the person who can fix that. That is the perception in which they're looking at. That is the only perception in which they're looking at it. And so by that perception, they see that candidate in its right way. Everything else about that candidate becomes secondary because their perception is this is the most important thing. Then we come to the other side of the coin, and people look at Hillary Clinton. And they basically say that we need someone in these times who understands the system, that can work with the system and help bring us back to a state where we can function better as a government. So they see that as their number one value, and therefore they tap into that. And anything else that may be about there, whether they're true or not, whatever comes up, they will ignore it and say that's it. So then you have people who are pushing a candidate, and they're not understanding why someone else has a different view, but they don't realize they're not seeing it through the perspective of the other person. And then when we take the idea of perspective, we can go deeper and say, what is it about the perspective? Well, it's our beliefs. So we have all these beliefs, whether they're conscious or unconscious beliefs that are going on in our life. Those beliefs influence our perspective. And then we come into the aspect of, well, where do the beliefs come from? Well, they basically come out of what we value in life. Now, most people other than Agapeans, or most of Agapeans, don't really understand the idea of what values are. At Agape, we talk about those are probably the dominant 5 things in your life that really juice you, that you don't have to be called to do. You wake up and you want to do it because it's your gift. And when you understand your values, you now start building beliefs around those values. And when you build beliefs around those values, you have a perspective. And then your perspective is what? Based on your unique 5 values. Remember, we talked about this at other talks where I think Dr. John talks about there are 4,628 different traits that people have. And so with that many number of traits, there are no 2 people on the planet of 7.5 billion that have the same values, so that everyone is looking at life through a unique perspective that is different from everyone else's, and then we sit here as a society wanting everyone to believe like we believe. Well, we're just screwed. There's no way that people are going to believe like we do because they all have a different perspective. A lot of times I'm called into counseling, and I work with couples, and they say, well, we're sort of watching the way you and Jean have this relationship. It's like this easy dance. We want that. And I really want to say to them, you can't have it. You can't have it just like we've got it, because I have my unique values, she has her unique values, and we found a way to take those values and dance together. The question is, can Sarah and Angelo find their unique values, and then can they form their unique dance, and their unique dance will give them the type of relationship that will enrich them. You see, the relationship I have with my wife enriches me and maybe enriches her. I can't speak for her. You see, that's the beauty of it. When you're in a relationship with someone, you've got to understand that your perspective is only from your eye, from your values. You never know what they're doing or what their perspective is. So you can't make an assumption about that. A lot of times when people come into a class or something, one person will start speaking for the other. And I very quickly say, no, you don't use the word we. You don't know what we feel. You only know what you feel, so speak from the word I. See, that's where empowerment comes. Empowerment comes from I know my values. I am speaking my truth. I'm in perspective with things. But here's the key. Without the perspective, and I'm going to change it right now. I'm going to go to Lee's words. The awareness. You see, you can't change anything about a new mental atmosphere until you become aware. That's why we talk about this all the time, that awareness matters. That when we become aware, we can start to understand, oh, wait, I've got unique values. Oh, wait, my unique values create my beliefs. Without an awareness, we're going to live blindly. So let's assume and understand that our life is a mirror out. So once we understand that, what are the things we can use to guide our life? Well, our reflection, our perceptions, they reflect back to us. So we always know who we are if we're aware. We know that what's coming back to us is simply what we're putting out. A lot of times at the Chamber of Commerce, I have people sitting by me all the time. And they're coming up and they want to sit next to me. And I ask them, why do you want to be next to me? And the comment I get back most often is because it feels good when we're next to you. You see, all I have is my mental energy. And my mental energy is I radiate peace, love, and joy. That is one of my affirmations. Not only is it I radiate and experience peace, love, and joy. I say that affirmation every day 108 times. I've been saying that affirmation every day 108 times since June of 2013. Now, if you think about that, that's more than 3 years, so that's roughly about 14,000 days, not 14,000 days, 365, 1,400 days that I've said that affirmation 108 times, which means I've said that affirmation really roughly 150,000 times. Now, when you're plugging in an affirmation into your subconscious mind 150,000 times, do you think that's creating a mental atmosphere around you? Do you think that's changing your perspective and how you're looking at life? You bet. You see, this is what we're about at Agape. It's about how do we teach a practical tool, a tool that's simple to use, that you can use it and create a whole new way of experiencing life. Okay? The other thing, our beliefs reflect back to us. You know, it's not only that our perspective, but our beliefs. We know what our beliefs are because of how we're living. Our values reflect back to us. And you could say, wait a second, I don't value that. Well, that's what you're putting out to the world, so apparently you do. Apparently you're giving time, attention, money, thought, all of that to something you don't value. How many people value politics in here? I see one hand out of all the people here. Then I'm going to ask the question, how much energy are you putting into politics today? Stop. Remember, here's an example I got the other day, and it was absolutely brilliant. Everyone is worried about who's going to become the president. I say to you, it doesn't matter. Think about in 2008. In 2008, when we had the economic downturn, $62 trillion disappeared from the economy of the world. $62 trillion disappeared. How are you today? Are you fine? Are you thriving? Are you breathing? Are you basically living a life better than 95% of the people of the world? Then what do you've got to fear? You see, fear is something we create in our mind. It's a perspective. Don't buy into a fear perspective. Buy into a perspective. Wait a second, I'm a whole perfect individualization of infinite mind because infinite mind is everywhere present. Infinite mind had to create everything out of something. The only thing it could create out of is itself. So then I am infinite mind, individualized, and the power that creates is responding to me through the sum total of my beliefs, which my beliefs are based on my values, which creates my mental atmosphere, which puts me out into the world, which draws to me that which I'm like. When we buy into that aspect of life, wow, we're in control. Mouthful, wasn't that? The video will be up tomorrow. The podcast will be up tomorrow. There'll be slides. You can watch all of it then. Here's things. What can we do about how do we use this reflection? A lot of people, when you're unconscious, when we're unaware, we just ignore it. Oh, it's just happening. I'm a victim. When you're a victim, it means you are unconscious. When you're a victim, it means you're taking the perception that someone can do something to me that will affect my feelings. You are always in control of how you feel. No one can stop your mind from feeling how it wants to feel. We have been programmed unconsciously through our life experience to feel ways based on certain stimuli. Now we can change that. Like I said earlier, the power of an affirmation can do that very easily. Here's the other thing we can do. We can change what we see. We can change how we look at something. Think about this. You're by the pool. You're reading a book. You're facing away from the pool. You're reading a book. It's a beautiful sunny day. It's a public pool. It's not even a public pool. You're at a magnificent resort in Cabo San Lucas. And you're there and your chair is facing the ocean. And these beautiful waves are coming in. And there's some very delicious looking male surfers out there, ladies. And so when you're not reading the book, you might be looking at them. Gentlemen, there's some beautiful bikini women out there. So your attention is out there, right? All of a sudden, someone's splashing you from the pool. And you're starting to really get ticked off. And the splashing keeps happening. And you are really ticked off. You're there. You've got your book. You've got the sunlight. You've got the bikinis. You've got the surfer boys. Everything couldn't be better except the splashing. And you turn around to yell at the person, and you notice that it's a child drowning. Do you see how quickly your perspective changed? All we did was change how we were looking at it. We can do that on any aspect of life that we choose. Because remember, life can be looked at from infinite ways. There are infinite possibilities on how we can look at life. The next thing is we can change how we look at it and see it from a balanced perspective. The key word there is balanced. Because what we've come to understand that science has proven over and over again, you cannot have a battery with a positive without a negative. You cannot have an atom that does not have a balancing positive and a negative electric charge. You can go down to the smallest particle that humans have been able to identify to the largest, and you will always find there has to be imbalance. So in your life, when you're experiencing the worst things in the world, at that same time, it's your perspective focusing on the worst things that are not seeing the things over here that are balancing it out. Because in any moment, there's as much good happening as there is perceived bad. It's a matter of where are we putting our attention in that moment. Do you realize in this moment, in this 1 second, your body has replaced over 10 million cells? In every second you're alive, your body is rejuvenating and regenerating 10 million cells. Now that regeneration is based on what? Your mental atmosphere. So if you're sitting in a place of stress and you're there for 2 hours, take 2 hours of 120 minutes times 60, and I'm not going to do the math right here, it's a lot of seconds, times 10 million, that's the number of cells that are being replaced from a stressed atmosphere, and we know that stress is the cause of all disease, is it not? Think about that. So does it behoove us to take on a practice that brings us into a state of balance? That's the practice of meditation. Meditation is the ability to let go of the emotional charge and be present in the moment and feel that state, that oneness. Now, we may only feel it for microseconds or a couple seconds in that state, but to have that profound feeling will be so healing, it is beyond anything that you can imagine. We're the only ones who can change the perspective of who we are. And who we are reflects back to others where they are. See, when we have a perspective, and then someone else is with us, we're going to reflect back to them. If I'm yelling at someone, what are they going to do? They're going to yell back. You see, it's an attraction going on. And where we are, it becomes a guide. So we become a guide by what we reflect back. So if we understand our values, clearly understand our values. Remember I went to, I radiate peace, love, and joy. I radiate and experience peace, love, and joy. If I put that as the mirror that I am, and you come lash at me, and I radiate back peace, love, and joy, and acceptance, you will change. Because the darkness cannot put out the light. The light will always illumine the darkness. And the light is always about a greater expression of life. It is never about a lesser expression of light. It's about a greater expression of life. That's what the light is. And you see, the thing we've got to understand is we are all interconnected. It is through the energies that we are that we touch each other's lives. When you walk into a place, you will feel the collective energy of the people that are in the place. So if you're going for a job interview, when you walk in, feel the energy, be aware of the energy, because that's the collective energy of that community, of that business. When you're walking into, let's say you're going to a new beauty salon, walk in, what's the energy of the beauty salon? If you're walking into a place to get a massage, what's the energy of the massage parlor? When you're walking into a grocery store or a restaurant, when you're walking into a restaurant, what is the energy? Is it an energy that you feel is going to bring you to a state where you're going to want to eat and your body's going to digest healthy? Or is it something different than that? When you walk in the house and you're with your parents or you're with your children or with your life partner, when you walk in and you feel your partner's energy, is it an energy you want to be around? I like to say that when my partner's energy very seldom is not where I want it to be around, I immediately ignore her and go downstairs. Because nothing good happens with contrasting energies. Remember, I don't have the power to change anyone but me. So I can allow that person the time to change their energy. And hopefully you're in a conscious relationship where you understand, you can look at her and you can say, I think I'll go downstairs and meditate for a while. Do you hear? Those words were not offensive words. But I could have said, right now you're being a bitch, so I'm going to go downstairs. Do you see how it's a matter of perspective of putting the thought out there? The power is in you. This is why we come back to agape. Agape is about unconditional love. The love of God operating through the human heart. Hear that. The love of God operating through the human heart. That was Martin Luther King Jr. that said that. The love of God operating through the human heart. So think about the love of God. This power and presence that is everywhere, that created everything out of itself, knowing that everything is it, must accept everything as it is, because as it is perfect, because it created it. So if I come and I go out into the world with the love of God operating through my heart, I'm accepting everybody as they are. Key thing, and I've said this before, doesn't mean you got to like them. You can accept them as they are. You don't have to like them, and you can move away from them and go somewhere else and live. But you have to accept people where they are, because the universe will always be expressing in infinite ways. It's never going to be expressing through one perspective. It's always going to have infinite perspectives out there, because that's how it works. To deny that is to go against the way things work. And to go against the way things work is going to lead us into a state of frustration, despair, anger, fear, all of the negative emotions that you can imagine. But when we understand the laws of the universe and we function with them, we'll live a great life. So, perspective. Who controls your perspective? This is the question you ask this week. When you feel your button being pressed, say, who's controlling the button? And you want to be able to say, I control my button. I am the power. I accept it. I now assume full responsibility for how I feel. That's how we create the perfect life. Let's pray. I want to thank you for joining us today. I'm so grateful that you took your time to watch or listen to this message. If you found this message beneficial, I would ask that you go to our website, agapecsl.com. Once there, click on the donate button and experience the joy of conscious and purposeful giving. Or if you would like, text your gift by simply dialing 972-532-6976. It is through your gifts that we are able to bring this message to you in the world. I would ask that if you like this message, to please subscribe to my YouTube channel under my name, Lee Wolak. Again, I want to thank you for joining me in the Agape community as we learn how to better self-love through conscious living.